Our required readings this week will come again from our textbook, and the first one is Chapter 5. And Chapter 5 will provide all the guidelines you need to design instruments and processes to evaluate learning. Then we have Chapter 15, Evaluating a Leadership Training Program. And here you'll find some good information, including a discussion of guidelines for interpretation of results. And in particular, for example, the authors provide information on how to determine whether the training was successful or not. So for example, in this case, they are showcasing the interpretation of results from learning. And this was actually useful for when you had to determine how your training would be successful. So if you devise a scale where you say, well, less than 50%, more than half of the participants did not increase their knowledge, or little over half the participants increase their knowledge, and then you get all the way to outstanding, almost all participants gain your knowledge, then you decide at which level you want to consider yourself successful, and that's how you would report when you have that column on the data collection table where I asked you to have the measure of how successful you are. So these numbers can come from the organization where you're working. Maybe they do have some minimum standards for the training. They can come from an analysis of the job. So for example, if it is a high risk job, there's knowledge that absolutely everybody needs to understand at 100%. And so that may be the rule to determine the standard, or you can have more flexibility. But this is what you want to include when you're discussing measures of success. And then Chapter 20 discusses evaluating training from an outage management system. And one thing you'll find in this chapter which is useful is a rubric that is used to measure performance. On page 230 you'll find this document. But on the same chapter they do make reference to the Schrock and Coscarelli book in terms of using it as a resource for creating test items. So you'll see how they used it. And then the other thing that you'll see in this chapter is how they went through a process where they incorporated management from the get-go, and how successful the training program was because there was management buy-in. So that is another lesson you'll learn from this chapter. Then the last piece of the required readings is Chapter 25, and the things that you'll get out of this chapter is an example of the data collection plan, which is similar to the one you just submitted. Not exactly the same, because a responsibilities column you didn't have to worry about, and you did have to show how what were the measures of success for the training. And also you'll see this document, which may come in handy if you want to share this kind of information with your stakeholders. This is one idea you can implement to basically at every stage of the process you decide what are the tasks that need to be done before, during, and after the training, and who's responsible for these tasks. So these two are examples that are useful when it comes to planning your own evaluation processes and forms. The optional reading for this week is Schrock and Coscarelli, 2007, and Chapter 7 and Chapter 8 are going to be useful to help you learn how to create really solid cognitive items, which are good for evaluating knowledge and attitudes, and also creating rating instruments for evaluating performance or skills.